or anything. Yeah, that's what I thought, that there wasn't too much PMGs in it. Though I think what's most likely is those that are used to Grafana have used it a fair bit. I will say, as far as the content for today that we're doing, this is the most kind of out there content that we've got. That's why we put it in this advanced session at the end of the day. We're mostly going to start, I think, and we're going to follow along with the knowledge base a little bit, because I think that's the place to go, to at least start with the basics, and then we'll expand on them a little bit. I will say, in all honesty, I'm probably the best at FileWave in dealing with the dashboard from a reporting aspect, as far as having used it the most with the product, but I haven't used it nearly as much as I'd like to. So this is an area for me personally that I want to do a lot more with it and understand the components a little bit better. But I'm going to show you a good deal of what I know today and kind of what some of the things that we can do with it. So let's jump in and to that. John is asking about not sure how to get started. That's exactly what we're going to jump into here today. So let's go take a look. So I'm going to share my screen here, and certainly we'll do questions here too. And if there's somewhere along the way we have to we want to switch to something else, or there are other questions, that's fine too. But let's jump in, and it's entirely possible that there are others on the call that actually know more about this than me. So we'll see. Not to say that there aren't others on the call who knew more about other subjects than me too. That was entirely possible too. But let's start from the beginning here, if we would. I did want to point out one thing that you may not have noticed with the web admin, for those, just to give you the direction on where we're going with the knowledge base. We've got a lot of stuff that we want to cull out of here. But if we go, or was it version 14? I think it is somewhere in here. To here, the version 14 web admin, you're going to notice there's a structure to this. This is what we're trying to do. Sorry, this is a little of a side, but this is what we're trying to do with our knowledge base contents, is stick to this same format, this what, when, why, and how structure, linking to related content. And if we've got anything really deep, we'll do it down here below. Trying to keep the content as short as possible with integration of some video, and that is being used in the web admin. If I move this out of the way for a minute, any view that you're in, for instance, in the web admin, if I go into payloads, you're going to notice that there's a help icon here at the top, and that help icon links directly to those knowledge base items that only ones that relate to the view that you're in. So you'll see that you see update model here and customize views, because those are, and search criteria, those are applicable everywhere. But if we look at things like adding a profile, et cetera, those are specific to this view. So clicking on that will take you directly to this knowledge base link. Just one thing I wanted to point out while we're in here, right? But what we're going to do here is we're going to actually use the knowledge base a little bit to help us on the dashboard side. And I don't remember where that was, so I'm going to search for it. Oh, here it is. Right. So if we go back here, and there's a whole structure to the dashboard, and it's in 4 sections. There's a section on just some basics, and that's where we're going to start. Then we're going to look at customizing dashboards, easy stuff that you can do, customize dashboards. Then we're going to look at some little more advanced stuff that we can do. And if we have time, although I don't know we'll get that far, we can talk about alerting just a little bit from the dashboard too. So let's start just at the top, right? What's the dashboard for? Right? What is it for? Well, it is for aggregating data, right? So when I want to look at things like, let's say payloads, for instance, if I want to look at deployments of things, I can click on a payload and I can see how it's been deployed. I probably don't have much in here that's actually been deployed since we've been doing things, but let's look at Firefox that we may have deployed on the Mac side. I can see that there's one deployment that's done, and I can look at payload settings here and see that, devices here, see which devices that has been sent to, right? So that's good, right? But what if I want a report on Firefox? Just what versions of Firefox people have in the environment? This is one that I almost always want to use for dashboard examples, because we can do a report on that. We can do a report here in the web admin or an inventory query in the native admin. It doesn't show us summary data. It shows us all the detailed data, all the records for every installation of Firefox but not the numbers of those installations. So if we want to, basically we don't have the ability in there to aggregate data. And that's what the dashboard gives us the ability to do. So let's step into some dashboard basics here. Okay, that's broken into a lot of content, but some of this will be very quick for us to go through. Accessing the FileWave dashboard is super easy, right? But it is driven by permissions in the native admin. And you may not have these, because generally when we add new permissions, and you may have run into this in the past, when we add new permissions with version updates, so this was in version 14, these checkboxes are new. We don't check those for anybody automatically, right? And yes, Bert, this is going over dashboards, so specifically for version 14 and above. Right, so these dashboards are, the permissions to them are controlled in the native admin, right? So you may not have them. So you may find that go to dashboard isn't available for you. But getting to it, very easy. In your web admin, you can go dashboard, and that will link us directly over to it and take us right into Grafana. Assuming that it's working, unless mine's just totally broken. Oh, it's loading. All right. But to that point, I do want to back up just one level and talk about the pieces. So the graphing system is Grafana, but if we back up to the highest level on this, to the dashboard itself, you'll notice it mentions two other tools, and there's another one in there too that we use too. But Grafana is for the graphing, and Prometheus is the system that's on the FileWave server that does most of the data grabbing. So it's grabbing most of the data from the FileWave server and providing it to Grafana. The power of Grafana is twofold. It's in showing you the data now, but also this aspect of being able to show you historic data. So if we want to look at something like installations, let's say I'm going to roll out Firefox, I kind of like, you know, I want to know about it today, but it's kind of nice. Like if I want to show my boss how I'm doing such a great job of getting Firefox rolled out, I want to show that last week we didn't have any deployed. And that currently is impossible. And that's the kind of thing that you can do using Prometheus and Grafana, is to capture that kind of data to look at it over time. So getting to it is super simple, right? Access part is pretty easy. The default dashboard, right? So default dashboard, right, drops us right into this FileWave system dashboard. And in fact, there's a lot of them in here. So if you look in the list, it's a little slow. There we go. We've got all of these are included in the FileWave included dashboards. So we're giving you a lot of stuff to look at, and you can navigate them in a few ways. Your history shows here, so you can kind of bounce around them a little bit, or you can go from this dialog and say jump over to say Grafana, which is going to show information specifically about Grafana, probably not of any use to you at all. Yes, so you do need to be at version 14 for the dashboard stuff. So Grafana is not too useful for you. Some of these we built for ourselves, and some of them are for you. Certificates is kind of a boring view, but it shows you your certificates very similar to what you were using in the native admin, which shows how, you know, how soon it expires. So for instance, on this server, I'm using a cert from what's that easy one, that one you have to renew all the time? I forget. But anyway, so it's always, you know, just in a couple of months that one needs to renew for me, but it's a place we can watch out for. There are interesting ones that are, boy, it's, oh, you know what, I'm VP'd in, so that's. Yeah, sorry about that. My VPN blew up. So, do you have me back?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, my dog bit. Okay, let me share that screen again. Okay. So we can browse through the dashboards that are provided in this dashboards view here from Manage and see all of the FileWave ones. Right, so we can look at things like Apache, for instance, that's the web server that's running, the associations view, and that might be a good one for us to start with. But basically, we can browse around and look at all of these different ones, and we can change the filtering that we're looking for. All right, so default dashboard FileWave provided ones are the ones that we were just talking through. Right, and switching between them, we kind of covered all of those things here, and this is an example in the KB of having some video in here, wherever possible. We're not doing any audio with them, just really short, quick little videos that show you different things. All right, so you can follow along with this if you want to do it in your own environments, all the same content. Right, the dashboard panels and the widget layouts, when you look at them, now the one that we provide you, if we go back to the main dashboard here and to FileWave system. All of these things that you see in here, I call them widgets. I think they have a different term for them, but I think of them as widgets. All of these different individual ones, wherever you see a title. So here, system health and memory and CPU and file system fullness, etc. You can move all these around, the current model number. You can move these around wherever you want. So for instance, if I wanted these alerts to be down at the bottom, can I move that one? Right, I can move CPU up here to the top, for instance, if I wanted to. I can scale it differently, right, and say I'd like to have a much bigger view of that. The only thing is with the included dashboards that we provide you, so you can see this is just a little test box. It hardly ever does anything. But right here, it had a little bit of spike on the CPU side. I can do whatever I want with this, and it's really cool that as you mouse over the data points, it gives you details about exactly what's going on at that point. So that's very helpful. And we hope to build out in future some more FileWave specific ones. So when we talked about the APN queue, for instance, and stuff, those are dashboards elements that we really need to add, and we'll be working on those in future. But I did want to point out that I can make changes to these built-in ones if I want. And there's a save option, but it's not going to allow you to save the built-in ones. Right? You can't make changes to the built-in ones, but you can steal from them. So you can use all of the elements from these in your own custom dashboards, and that's kind of where we're going to go here in a second. Okay, so we can switch between them. They call them panels. That's it. Dashboard panels is their term for it. Okay, so let's start with something simple we can do that actually is useful, is looking at associations. So if I go in this list again of things, I'm going to see associations as one of the views that I have, and I'm going to discard. It's complaining because I didn't save what I changed, but I'm not going to save it. And I come over here to associations. You can see it's totally blank. Right? Well, not totally blank because I have one turned on. Right? This is controlled through the native admin. Right? And we're going to go play with the Firefox file set that we did earlier today, because at least that one is one that I know that is assigned to something. But I'm going to bet you dollars to donuts it doesn't deal with file set revisions very well. But we'll use that one anyway. Right, so there's some things for us to improve. But here in file sets, if I go take a look at that test that we did before, which was somewhere here, right? If we go into the association for this, if we show associations and we see that, okay, it's by association. So if we go into the properties of the association, you may or may not have noticed a new checkbox in here. Right? So if we double click there, there's this checkbox that says expose to dashboard. Any file set association you do that with here will make this association show in dashboard, and it's the equivalent of getting that little donut graph that you see in the web admin when you look at an individual device, or an individual payload, that is. So when I come back over into Chrome, when this page reloads, I don't know if I can force it to, it just magically it shows here after a little bit. And I may need to update the model whenever that's a question. I guess you should go ahead and do it anyway. Okay, and there it's showing now, right? So in this case, right, and this is showing none. See, that's a little wrong, isn't it? It's always showing, oh, no, it's actually correct. right? Why is this correct? It's not quite right. Well, there's something to correct there. But you see how it's showing 4 are in this remaining state? This is very similar to what we'd see in the web admin, but it allows us to police the installation. So this one, you'll notice that 2 of them are assigned and 2 are complete. This one has 4 that are not complete, and these are the 4 that are in that smart group that are not actually online to get the file set. So those are technically remaining. I do not know why it doesn't show the 1 as completed. I'll take a look at that. But you can do that with any association. You can turn that on. I will warn you that the kiosk ones don't really work right, because this logic doesn't work for kiosks. It doesn't have the concept yet of it's neither remaining nor completed, right? It needs to, you know, it can be assigned or can be installed, but isn't necessarily installed. So we need another attribute here. So we've got an open enhancement request for that. But this is a real nice, easy one that you can do to show some content for associations. Any questions on anything so far? Has there been anything going on? I'm not watching the chat, so.
No, not really. Just a few people noticed that theirs were grayed out, and I believe it's because of the permissions.
Yeah, and as I said, there's always
to expose.
Yeah, there's always default to off, and then there's the option to expose that. So, yep, absolutely. Okay, so that's exposing an association to a dashboard, right? And that gets us kind of through, you know, some of the basics of how you can move around the built-in ones. Some of these are related to extra metrics, which I don't know if they're actually working, but let me discard that. Yes, so we'll come back to this in a bit, and we'll talk about that little add-on. So that's something to wait for later. But let's talk about, you know, see things like Postgres, so we can see, you know, database behavior and stuff. So things that PN will care about, and but probably none of the rest of us on the call. So important stuff for support, though. So there's all sorts of things that we're reporting on here, and we hope to leverage this more from a support perspective, at least, to start adding more stuff that makes it much faster for our support staff to triage what's going on in your environment. When you call in, that this will be a tool that will help us maybe do a little bit less of that log file diving that we have to do all the time now. Right, so that's our plans for this, and one of the reasons this is so important, apart from just the fact that you can use this as a tool to be able to report to your management too. So those are some of the very basics right here in the dashboard. But let's hop on into custom dashboards. Okay, so what we give you is great, but you want to do your own stuff, right? So the couple ways we can do that: we can create our own dashboard, right? We can copy widgets. And then we can start to create our own. So let's start with that, right? If we go into manage here, you'll notice there's an option to create a new dashboard. So we're going to create, we've created it. It's not named yet. I'm going to go ahead and save it and call it then conference dashboard. And we can put it there are folders as well, but I'm going to put it in general. And we'll save that. Okay. And this conference dashboard is empty. There's nothing in it whatsoever. Now we can create our own, right? But we're going to start easy. We're going to start by copying, and it shows you, right, here in the next knowledge base article about how you copy them, okay? So we can simply go into another, right? And again, the view here at the top, not from that view, but here, we can see other things. So let's go over to, say, the FileWave system one. Let's say on our dashboard, we might want to have the current model number and we want the CPU, all right? So we can take this and we can click on it and we can say copy. We can't edit it here in a way that we can save it, but we can go over to our own dashboard, and then we can create a new dashboard and say paste copied panel. And that put this panel on our dashboard. So we can then resize that and say, hey, I don't need that much room. I can just do the model up here. All right, this is the model number that we have. All right, and again, the advantage, is that really useful for somebody if you're reporting outside of FileWave? Probably not too much, but we'll get to some more detailed stuff here in a minute. And of course, whenever I make a change, if I try to navigate away, it's going to say, hey, you haven't saved. So I'm going to go ahead and save it each time. right? So we can steal the model number. We can steal all sorts of different things. What else is fun for us? Maybe we want to go back and steal that CPU panel as well. And we'll copy that one. Now, each of these panels, when you look at them, you'll see that it gives you an option here for panel JSON. That's really what drives the panel. There's a UI for doing this, but you can copy it from a JSON perspective too. If you wanted to move it to like a wholly different system, you can do that as well. So let's go back to our conference one, and we'll paste in another new panel and paste that copy panel. So we've got our CPU one in here as well. And maybe that CPU one, I like it over here on the right, but I want that much bigger, right, than what it was in the other. So we can control all of that, and that metadata gets saved with the dashboard, right? So every save saves that information. Right? Make sense so far? You may find that some of the panels, and I don't remember which one specifically I have in the knowledge base article here, but some of the panels are not as simple as just copying it. Some of them refer to specific, I don't know which one it was, but let's go, we'll dig into them a little bit further. So let's go with, I guess I could play that video to know which one it was. I should probably have looked at that ahead of time, but let's go over to, I don't have any boosters. Let's go to Apache, right? We'll take just one more and let's take this one and we'll copy it as well. So we'll add one more and then we'll move on to the next topic. And of course we could open this in multiple windows. Okay, that's a perfect example of what I was talking about. I've copied and pasted it, but I didn't get the data here. You see that? I just happened to guess right. So if we go back over to the other dashboard, I'm going to go ahead and save this. But the reason this is not working, we can look at the detail here. If we edit these panels, we can see that this is referring to two variables of host and port. And now I've only fixed this one time, so I have to now remember how we actually fix this. But if we go back to the original of this that was on the Apache one, right? And which one was it that we're looking at? Worker statuses. Okay, back to Apache. And the worker statuses, if we edit it here, we're going to see, where are those defined? Those are defined. These are basically variables that are defined at the dashboard level. All right, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole here, but these are defined at the on the individual dashboard, and this short little video shows you how to steal them. But you just need to steal those variables and add them to the view that's in your dashboard as well. So it's not that important. I don't want to spend too much time on it. But let's go back over here, right? And in fact, I don't have any boosters. So that's a good one because it gets information from all your boosters, but I didn't think to populate that one for us ahead of time. So that's a good one, right? And that copy panel is blank. Oh, here it is, right? That shows you exactly what to do. And the variables are in, it's in the dashboard settings. So it actually tells me, so. And the variables here. Right? None in mine, which is probably why it's not working. But if I go backward to Apache, and we won't go through to fix it. And we go into Apache and look at the configuration here, and we look at variables, you can see that there are two and exactly what they do. All you have to do to make that dashboard work is that you copy these and move them over into your new dashboard as well, right? So that $host and $port are defined. Okay, so pretty boring stuff so far, yeah, but we're leading up to more entertaining stuff, okay, although quite detailed stuff. So we can add our own panels, right, but we don't have to copy, right? Copying them is not the only way. Of course, we can build our own too, right? So we can build them, right? And what are the elements? We've got three things. There's the query, the visualization, and general, right? So I don't have an example on this. It just tells you the pieces. So if we go back to our dashboard, and which was what conference, where was it? and we add a new one. All right, we don't have to copy. We can just start with the query. Okay, so we can do quite a number of things from here. We can just cheat and start looking at tabular data sources, for instance, and look at the fields, right? So we could say we're going to get something from Grafana, for instance, or we're going to get something from Prometheus. And then from the metrics view, we can actually look at all the stuff that's available to us. So I think in FileWave, right, we can just pick elements that we want to see, like FileWave booster certs. I even think there's a client, so there's a client's total, right? So this is showing us the number of clients that are in the environment, right? And we can pick then Chromebooks. You see we got Chromebooks, we got desktops, and the duplicated, I don't remember why. Oh, because we're doing time series. If we do instant only, it's going to show us just the last ones rather than the time series, but we can do it either way, right? And then we can report on those things in our actual dashboard. And I think that we go into, I thought there was a detailed view of this. Sorry. Okay. Yep, let's move over to this. So the basic gist is we can define the query. We can define the visualization. Okay, in this case, it's set as a graph by default, but we can go for all these different ones. We added our own FileWave pie chart because the built-in pie chart we thought was a little bit lame. But if we do it with a FileWave pie chart, there was a little bit more that we could do with control of some of the data. So you can filter this, you can change labels, all sorts of things. I won't try to go through all that stuff here in the little baby demo we're doing because I already know that the next thing we're going to do takes a little bit more work. But we can then aggregate and create our own data for this. So let's go back to our example about using data coming in from Prometheus. So far, everything that we've looked at, right, and I realize this is more lecture than workshop, but everything that we've looked at has been data that's already being collected by Prometheus for Grafana to use. But we can build our own. And in fact, the extra metrics thing that I was talking about before, I should probably go look at that real quick. If we go and look at that extra metrics thing, was something that John built as kind of an add-on to this, and we want to do some more work with that as well. It adds these three things that you won't see in your environment, from patching and applications and deployments. If we go to applications in particular, right? This is the kind of stuff that we're going to be building here in a second, right? So what is this showing us? Well, what we've done is we've built specific queries. So this is actually kind of dynamic over here in the inventory queries. Extra metrics adds this section and adds queries for looking for different software elements. So if we edit this query, and this is, again, there's a process to installing this, but this is in the knowledge base as well. What is our query in this case? Simply that the application name contains, in this case, Firefox. So in the fields results, right, I'm getting, I don't know that I've got any duplicates. I'm probably pretty clean on that. But I can make other things too. So let's do Safari. If we duplicate this, right, and we call it Safari, extra metrics reads this. Right, so this is just your normal inventory query, right? And we can see the version information on the multiple devices we've got. If I save that and it's saved in this group, the extra
It looks like he cut out completely this time. Let's wait for him to join back.
Hello again. That was interesting. Can you all hear me?
There you are.
Yeah, we had a huge rainstorm just opened up and a big lightning strike, and then my landline internet went bye-bye. So I'm on my backup now, but hopefully you can hear me okay. All right, so let me go back to wherever we were. Let me refresh this. Or maybe it's God's way of telling me this is boring. I'm not sure. It's one of those two things. We were just getting to the exciting part, I promise. Well, maybe not exciting, but interesting. So did I lose you when we were looking at the inventory query? Did I lose you again?
You were about to talk about, you were showing the inventory query and how it can be tied into the extra.
Yeah, exactly. So the extra metric stuff then dynamically drives this. So I went to John and said, well, really, I want to report on the versioning of stuff. That's aggregate data that I want. And it doesn't mean much when you look at my version of it here, because my version of it only is my lab that only has a couple of devices in it. Actually, it was extra applications that I wanted to look at. Let's see if it showed up yet. It has not showed up yet, but what this view shows me then is that breakout of applications by version. So let's assume that in my environment, I'm looking at Firefox, right? And you can see the 87 that I did before and the 86, right? I've got one of each of those. I haven't picked up the newer version of 87. And that's an important point to just note with software inventory in general, is the software inventory is only up to date from the last gathering of software inventory, right? So the last verify from a device. So in the case where I had 86 on the one device and I had 87 on the other, and then I changed the other one, well, that other one hasn't reported inventory since it upgraded from 86 to 87. So it still shows in the 86 column, and there's one, right? So my test environment, not very many machines at all in here, but in a production environment where everybody's got Firefox, well, I might restrict that then to be Firefox for Windows, for instance. And if I'm managing Firefox, what do I want? I want every single device in my environment to be at a certain version, whatever my most recent default version is. So when I look at this report, I want to see a big spike here in purple and little itty bitty tabs for some of the other versions, right? And then I want to see them over time trend down. And that's the thing that this reporting then gives us, is the ability to then look at that as it changes over time. So we can change that time range for viewing this data. Does that make sense? This is actually where I think the power for most of us that are used to managing endpoints is to do this kind of aggregate reporting that's actually very difficult to do in FileWave directly. Okay. Now, extra metrics is not the only way to do that. I probably won't go through the showing you how to do extra metrics, but note that that is in the knowledge base that I seem to have lost, but let me pull that back up. The knowledge base article tells you exactly how to install extra metrics. The one really important thing is to make sure that you, when it comes to extra metrics, that you read the instructions here on this PyPy article and do it just the way it says, making sure to install extra metrics in its own virtual environment on your server. So it tells you how to do that, but then you end up with this charting that we've got here. So it's a little add-on, and that gives us not only the applications view, but it also gives us a patching view, patching status to show software updates and where your status is with those, right? So what are the critical updates, right? Here we can see, okay, which ones we have out there. What are those updates? Like what are the top requested? I don't have, again, it's a test environment, so I don't have that many devices in here, but this is the type of super powerful stuff that you can start to do that actually starts reporting for you based on your endpoints in your environment. And so we're going to do an example now of building our own one of these, but using it, it's kind of the old school way of doing it, but it's helpful to know how it's built. So I want to put a report on here of my FileWave client versions, right? What are the versions of FileWave client that I have in my environment? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to create a new inventory query. Okay, and I'm going to call this FileWave clients, right? I'm going to be real inventive here. And what am I looking for? I'm looking for the FileWave client version. A lot of times I'll cheat with this one and just say that the FileWave client version for Android or for Mac or Windows, in this case, I'm going to say contains a dot, right? That's an easy way to tell because it's reporting a version. And what am I going to get back? Well, I'm going to get back the devices, and I want to see the client version because I always like to see the data, right? So this is the data I have for the devices that are in my environment for the FileWave client, right? Now I really want to, in fact, I don't want last connected because I don't have any interest in that whatsoever, right? I just want the client version. In fact, I really don't even care about the device names, right? I just want the client version. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, but I'm going to take away even the device names. Well, I'll leave the device names. So we'll save that. Okay, and I've called it FileWave clients. Now I need to cheat a little bit because I do need to know the ID number of that. The simplest way to do it is to look at it in reports in the web admin because it actually shows me that. So my FileWave clients is ID 57. Okay, now this is where we need to cheat a little bit and go into the OS of our server to do this. So this is not, you know, do I think this is something you're going to be doing every day? No, but it's a good exercise to understand how it works, and it allows you to do something in the meantime with this kind of reporting while we work on a more, let's say, seamless way of doing this. I do need to connect to my VPN to do this next part, so let me do that real quick. And then we'll there we go. All right, sorry, that took a little bit. And if we go into here, when we look at this aggregating data, it steps us through each of these steps, right? So we can group the data using Prometheus. This is where we're going to start. You guys can still hear me okay, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to go here to user local etc FileWave Prometheus conf.d jobs HTTPS. This is where we want to be. I may or may not have something in that location already, but let's go take a look and see. And you need to spell CD correctly, evidently. And I know this is really in the weeds, but I'm hoping that like 4 people appreciate this. So we'll see. Okay, yeah, so I have several things in here already, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna cheat and steal the by FileWave client version 1, right? So if we go here and take a look, if we more that one out, these YAML files, there's an example file that's in one directory above this that you can start with. These are here because I've used them before. But if we look at it, there's not actually much in the file. I know this is probably a little small for you, but these things don't change. In fact, there's only 2 things that we actually change in here, or 3 things. One is the ID of the query, right? So our query that we're looking at is, what do we say, version ID 57. So I'm actually just going to edit the one that we have here. And we're going to say that this is 57. And, oh, I need to actually VI the thing. I forgot I wasn't in there. To by. Okay. All right. So let me go in and fix the bits. There are 3 pieces that we're going to change. There's the ID that we're pointing at, which is always going to be the ID of the inventory query that you're basing this on. And then you've got 2 pieces. There's the element that you're reporting on. So in this case, it's device ID. So I do need to add that to my report. I didn't do that, so let me add that real quick. If we go in here, let me go into query and add that field. Because that's what we're making, that's what we're counting devices as unique by. And I don't actually need device name. Okay, so we've only got 2 fields, FileWave client and device name. And back in terminal here, we're referencing those. This is what we're grouping by in the report. So when we're looking at aggregate data, we're looking at the FileWave client version. This text that you see here is not random, that I just wrote it in here what it is. This is what you need to steal from the API. Right, and you can look at the components to get that. So this is not for the faint of heart, right, to do this, but it's fun to know the behind the scenes with this. So this is what we're going to group by, meaning the columns themselves, right? And then the client ID, this part is what we're going to count, right? So in our case, when we look at this, we see 1323, 1323, 1323. So I expect to count of client 1323, I expect to count 3 of those based on counting by device ID. Make sense? And I need to, it's read only, so I need to sudo that. So 1 second, I'll do it again. Okay. I'm just going to change the ID to 57. Because the rest of it's the same. Okay. Once I do one of these, the others are much, much simpler. Okay. So that's updated and changed. Okay. Now, how do I use that over here back in my Grafana instance? Well, that's where we're going to cheat, and we're going to use that knowledge base article a little bit. Okay. And it, okay, we did that part. Right, and this explains all the stuff that I was just explaining. Now, we've done that. And we've edited the YML file. So we've done all that stuff. Now we're going to test it from the Prometheus side, right? So when this is doing it from, we don't need to do that part. But we can start here where we explore that data. So, and I need a screenshot because I never remember how to get to the field. Okay, so when we come back into, let me pause that. Can I pause that? There we go. If we go back over into panel, we haven't talked much about this Explorer. Explorer allows you just to look at data without any kind of visualization. So in this case, if I look for just FileWave, I should see inventory query stuff. I think it's actually inventory. Yep. And I can see inventory query 57, which is the one that I just added. And I can go ahead and run that query. And then you can see, sorry about my coworker there. You can see the data that we wanted, the raw data. You see how it's reading 1323, 1402, 1411 from here, and then giving us the summary data. So this is exactly what we want. So does that, I hope that part makes sense, that this is, Prometheus is scraping the inventory query that we have on a set basis of time and constantly reporting on what the values are for this count. So it's looking at it over time. Okay. When we want to go ahead and add that to our dashboard, we can go back to our conference one here. I have a feeling this is probably drinking for the fire hose from anyone, but have there been any questions or anything on this so far?
Yes, sorry, I couldn't find my mute button. There's a question from Anthony. Is it possible to pull the data from Prometheus into another Grafana?
I'll have to table that question. That's come up before, and John answered it, and I can't remember what the answer was, so I need to, that one I'll have to take offline. Emma, can you make a note of that one for us to follow up?
Yes, again.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and I do know this one's deep, but it's your fault for signing up for the advanced course, so here we go. All right, so once we've got this data, we're seeing it and testing it, and we can now go ahead and add that data to our data panel, okay? And the way we do that is once we've added that data, right, we can simply go in, create a new panel, add a query. What's our query? Well, we're gonna look for the same thing that we looked for before. So if we look for inventory, right, it's gonna kind of quick fill for us, and we can pick inventory query 57, right? Oops. Why is it wanting to give me the whole thing? I just want that. Thank you. And we can pick our visualization, right? So we could say that we want to do bars, for instance, and not lines. And we don't want this, we want this as instant. And we want, that's correct, I think. And we can do a pie chart, right? And that shows us in our pie chart, or we could do a bar graph, right? Which shows us the 3 to 2. So it's the same data, just looking at it several different ways. Graph might be the one that makes the most sense. And we can say, what do we want? We're just playing with the way it looks here. I'm going to stick with the bar graph for a second because it gives us it shows us in this way, where you can see that we only have one, it's 14.12, a couple that are 14.2, one or two at 14.1, etc. So we can see all the versions in here. Now we can clean that up a little bit by making the legend show, and I need the example because I always forget the syntax. We can make it show just the name and not that whole thing. So if we go here, there we go. So we steal it from, yeah, from this. When we mouse over this, we'll see those values. Is it generic underscore 2, and it's the square brackets around it, I think. Sorry, I should probably put this in a text file so I could just copy and paste it, but you can steal from it. So it shows you in the default view, and we're not looking at it in this view, but if we go back to the graph visualization. It shows it to us here, FileWave client version. So I think here we can simply do, I think it's like this, FileWave client underscore version. And there we go, right? So that changes then the legend so that it shows the attribute rather than all that metadata that we don't need. And then I can switch the view back over in the visualization to be, say, a pie chart. All right, and then I've got choices for the FileWave pie chart. I can do it like this and then set colors. Okay. So all that said, then I can go ahead and set the panel titles and all that stuff. So I can say a FileWave client versions. And I'd say easy peasy for this, but of course that wasn't, none of that was all that easy. But that has now added that element to our dashboard, and then of course we can move stuff around. All right, so I would say that was simple. It's not necessarily simple to do it, but it is pretty neat to do it. And you can report on anything in your environment. So for instance, if you're doing the practical examples, I think are always best. If you're doing something like doing an antivirus rollout and going to a new version, this is a perfect tool for leveraging the reporting of that over time. So you can look at it and say, hey, I want to see that right now. What did it look like yesterday? What did it look like the day before? And that's pretty much it on the dashboard here in a nutshell, right? There's a lot of depth here and a lot deeper we could go. But I know that just has everybody heading for the okay, I'm going to go ahead and leave the meeting now. So we're going to go ahead and stop at this point. Any questions or anything on the dashboard, web admin in general, FileWave in general, things we're doing next? This is the end of our day. So now's your last opportunity until the next time we get together.
Nothing in the chat so far.
It's because everybody's asleep now. that topic's a party killer, I think. All right, we did pretty good for the rest of the day, but we'll pick something other than dashboard next time. We'd love to hear about things that you'd like to cover for when there is a next time. What are the kinds of things you'd like to do a deep dive on that we haven't touched on here today? What are the things for general FileWave use, that you want to know more about? And by all means, I'd say, at least for Emma and myself and the whole team, really, we love to hear from you. So if you've got professional services time, training time, please use it. We're here for you to help you with anything you want. If you want to just be a little bit more efficient with what you're doing with FileWave, we can certainly help you with that. There's a lot of places where we can go. All right. If no other questions or anything, I think we'll go ahead and call it a day, but we really appreciate everybody coming in today and spending your valuable time with us. Thank you so much.